The first sign that the Dominion had lost the war was not a shattered dreadnought or a conquered capital. It was a blue flower blooming out of the Supreme Warden's breathing mask while he was still wearing it. No soldier saw who planted it. No camera captured a hand. No alarm sounded inside the Black Command Cathedral of the Vile Ruin flagship. One moment, Supreme Warden Koresh Vaughn stood before the assembled admirals of his sterilization armada, promising that Earth would be reduced to clean mineral silence. The next, a tiny stem pushed through the filter seam beneath his left cheek, unfolded 2 impossible petals, and released a drop of water onto his armor. The flower should not have existed there. Not aboard a warship scrubbed of bacteria every 6 minutes. Not inside a mask sealed against poison, vacuum, and assassination dust. Not in the heart of a species that had burned forests from 1,000 planets because they considered uncontrolled life a form of rebellion. Then every warship in the Armada received the same message from Earth, not shouted, not encrypted, not even marked as military traffic. It was the recorded voice of a dead woman. Leave something alive. The Dominion tried to erase Dr. Imani's soul because she had embarrassed them. That was the official reason, though no tribunal document used the word embarrassed. The papers said contamination, illegal rescue, interference with authorized planetary cleansing, emotional incitement among lower species, possession of unlicensed biological material. The charges filled 14 silver screens inside the purity court of Avar Seth, and every screen was taller than the woman standing beneath them. Imani was 72 years old. Her spine had been repaired twice after decades of disaster work. One of her hands shook when she was tired. She wore the plain gray jacket of the Human Relief Corps, still stained with soot from the moon she had tried to save. The moon was called Velnira by the species that lived there, though the Dominion had renamed it Extraction Parcel 9. Velnira had oceans under ice, moss cities hanging in crystal caverns, and a people who sang through their bones. The Valruin wanted the nickel veins below those cities. They issued an evacuation order written in a language the locals could not read, waited 3 hours, then began sterilization. Human relief ships broke quarantine to land. They did not fire weapons. They carried heaters, pressure tents, nutrient gel, translators, oxygen rigs, and seed vaults for the cavern farms. Imani coordinated the landings from the hospital ship Hearthwake. For 11 hours, humans and Velniran volunteers dragged families through melting tunnels, while Vale Ruin cleansing machines cut glowing scars across the ice above them. The Dominion commander ordered the Hearthwake seized. Every other human aboard was taken prisoner. Every Velniran patient was marked as contaminated property. Imani was brought to Avar Seth in chains because the Vile Ruin understood symbols. They believed that if the galaxy saw an old human doctor punished for mercy, fewer hands would reach for the next dying world. Koresh Vaughn presided personally. He was not emperor because the Vale Ruin claimed to have outgrown such primitive vanity. His title was Supreme Warden of Order, Keeper of Clean Worlds, Voice of the Sterile Mandate. Behind him hung the Dominion crest, a star without rays, perfect and dead. You were warned, he said. Imani looked smaller than the guards beside her, but the camera caught her smile. I was, she answered. You crossed a legal cleansing perimeter. Yes, you preserved infected populations. I preserved people. A ripple moved through the court. Some laughed, some hissed. The Vale Ruin had no patience for moral vocabulary spoken by defendants. Koresh leaned forward. His eyes were black, faceted, and dry. Human compassion, he said, is a disorder. It spreads fastest in crisis. It convinces weak species that suffering entitles them to rescue. Today we cauterize that disorder. Imani turned toward the nearest recording lens. Across human space, people watched her. On Earth, on Mars, on Europa, on slow freighters between stations, in classrooms, factories, shipyards, orbital farms, and refugee clinics built on asteroids so small they had no sunrise. Then you still don't understand us. Koresh's mandibles clicked. Explain. Imani lifted her bound hands as far as the restraints allowed. Something green clung beneath one thumbnail, a seed so small the guards had missed it. We do not rescue because we think life is weak, she said. We rescue because we know how stubborn it is. The court went silent. Koresh made a gesture. A guard struck her across the mouth. She spat blood onto the white floor and smiled again. Leave something alive, she whispered. The Dominion expected grief to scatter humanity. It expected petitions, threats from admirals, furious speeches, perhaps even a few foolish retaliatory raids that could be crushed and displayed. It expected humans to behave like every species under shock, loud first, broken later. Instead, humanity became quiet. For 31 minutes, every human public channel carried only Imani's final image. No commentary, no military banners, no president calling for resolve. Just the old doctor in chains, the blood at her lip, the green fleck beneath her nail, and the words she had left behind. Leave something alive. In the Andes, vault doors opened inside mountains, disguised as glaciers. Under the wheat oceans of Central Asia, dormant root networks began transmitting through soil sensors installed generations before. Beneath cities, abandoned subway tunnels lit up with emergency green lamps, no map displayed. Across human space, gardeners, doctors, smugglers, engineers, monks, pilots, teachers, and old war veterans received instructions their grandparents had hoped would never be needed. It had not been designed by one government. It had not been approved by one parliament. It had grown slowly from the oldest human fear and the oldest human promise. Humans had crossed the stars carrying not only weapons but redundancies. Food in case crops failed. Medicine in case treaties failed, shelters in case borders failed, maps in case official maps lied, secret nurseries beneath trade stations, micro-orchards inside fuel depots, rescue beacons dormant inside abandoned satellites, spores engineered not to kill, but to remember, signal, shield, feed, clog, bind, heal, and reveal, because humans had lived through disasters long before they met the stars. Marshal Annika Reyes stood in the Seedfall Command nursery beneath the Atlantic, surrounded by glass tanks full of sleeping forests. She had once been a botanist, then a relief captain, then the commander no one named in public. Her left arm was synthetic from the elbow down, grown around a lattice of mycelium circuits that responded faster when she was angry. She watched Imani die without blinking. Now those words pulsed across the nursery wall while seedfall nodes woke one by one. A young officer approached her. "Marshal," he said, "all Covenant ecosystems are reporting readiness." Annika kept her eyes on the map. "How many?" "Active nodes confirmed in 482 Dominion systems. Partial networks in another 700. Civilian couriers are standing by. Relief ships are requesting permission to break cover." Annika reached into her pocket and removed a small envelope, sealed in old paper. Imani had given it to her 9 years earlier, with instructions not to open it unless the sterile mandate reached Earth's allies. Annika opened it now. Inside were 3 seeds and one handwritten sentence. "If they burn the garden, become the rain." She closed her fist around the seeds. "Begin with breath," she said. The first Valrune installation to fail was not a fortress. It was a filtration tower on the prison planet Oscara 6. Oscara was a world of iron deserts and artificial labor domes where the Dominion kept dissidents from 29 species. The prisoners mined heat crystals beneath lethal sunlight. Their collars measured exhaustion, speech, posture, and unauthorized hope. When a prisoner collapsed, the collar reported waste. When a prisoner sang, the collar tightened. 3 days after Imani's death, rain fell inside Dome 17. The Valrune overseers panicked because Oscara had no clouds. The dome humidity was controlled to the decimal. Water was rationed by punishment category. Rain was impossible, but it fell anyway, soft at first, warm, smelling faintly of soil. Prisoners lifted their faces. Some opened their mouths. Some screamed because they thought it was poison. One elderly Keth woman began to laugh so hard she fell to her knees. The collars around their necks flickered, then opened. Every collar in Dome 17 dropped into the mud at the same time. The overseers reached for shock rifles, the rifles jammed with green fibers growing through their trigger assemblies. Doors, sealed to keep prisoners in, suddenly grew pale fungal veins across their hinges and split outward under pressure from roots that had not existed an hour earlier. A message appeared on the dome's internal screens, written in every prisoner language the humans had managed to gather. Breathe first, run second, help the slowest third. By dawn, Dome 17 was empty. So were Domes 5, 8, 12, and 19. The prisoners did not know that 20 years earlier, a human water inspector had visited Oscara under a sanitation treaty and wept silently in a service crawlspace after seeing children in mining chains. She had left behind what looked like harmless mineral dust. The dust had slept through inspections, sterilizations, and 4 upgrades to the dome systems. It woke when Imani died. Algae bloomed inside fuel lines, not enough to explode engines, only enough to stop warships from launching. Vines grew through the keyboards of tax archives and forced the release of confiscation records. Bread mold turned black uniforms gray, staining officers so deeply that no chemical could remove it. Micro-lichen spread across surveillance lenses, leaving the cameras blind, but painting tiny arrows on floors toward hidden exits. The Dominion's first reports called it contamination. The second reports called it sabotage. The third reports did not use a name at all. Fear had entered the paperwork. Koresh Vaughn did not fear forests. He had ordered continents shaved to bedrock. He had watched oceans boiled clean of plankton. He had turned jungles into ceramic plains because the sight of uncontrolled growth offended him. But as the reports multiplied, something cold moved beneath his ribs. Humans were not attacking like conquerors. They were making disorder useful. They were turning his empire's sterile efficiency against itself. Every pipe became a vein. Every vent became a throat. Every ration tank became a pond. Every prison became a greenhouse with teeth. His admirals demanded permission to glass all affected planets. Koresh denied them, not from mercy, from strategy. Too many affected planets contained Dominion resources, shipyards, archives, noble estates, power wells, and client populations whose fear maintained tax flow. The humans had chosen targets carefully. Burning them all would wound the Dominion worse than the uprising. So Koresh ordered containment. On the shipyard world Vonachar, where entire species were forced to build Vaelrun cruisers, moss spread over the identification scanners. Workers whose hands had never been allowed to touch control panels found the moss responding to their skin heat. It opened hangar doors. It unlocked tool cages. It displayed schematics of the ships they had been building all their lives. 200 unfinished cruisers lifted without Vaelrun crews. The Dominion had taught the galaxy that life survived by obedience. Humanity reminded it that life also escaped by adaptation. For 10 days, Koresh Vaughn said nothing publicly. His silence frightened the Synod more than anger would have. The Purity Synod met under a ceiling of dead stars, a black hall where no plant had ever been permitted and no water existed except in sealed vessels for ceremonial denial. The senior wardens argued in polished tones that gradually broke into accusation. Intelligence blamed sanitation. Sanitation blamed Archive Command. Archive Command blamed local overseers. The priest engineers blamed human ghosts inside machines, until a military governor shouted that ghosts did not write multilingual evacuation instructions with correct grammar. Koresh listened from his basalt chair. At last, he raised one hand. The chamber fell silent. "You are naming symptoms," he said, "not disease." One warden bowed. "The disease is human biology." "No," Koresh said. "The disease is human memory." No one spoke. They prepare for losses they have not yet suffered. They plant answers before questions are asked. They mistake paranoia for virtue and call it care. His voice lowered. "As long as Earth remains, every frightened species will believe there is a future beyond us." A priest engineer unfolded his hands. "Then Earth must be made futureless." The Dominion would launch the glass silence. Not a fleet, though fleets would escort it. Not a bomb, though its first breath could scour a hemisphere. The glass silence was an ancient sterilization engine built around a captive comet and a ring of sun lances. It did not merely kill cities. It erased microbial life, collapsed seed viability, hardened oceans into inert crystal, and left planets shining, beautiful, and dead. Koresh ordered it awakened and aimed at Earth. In the Atlantic Command nursery, Annika watched the glass silence appear on the long-range map. A weapon that could sterilize Earth did not need to break every shield. It only needed one wound, one atmospheric breach large enough for its cleansing wave to enter. Human medicine, agriculture, oceans, soil, lungs, animals, forests, plankton, gut bacteria, everything that made a living planet alive would begin to fail. An officer spoke quietly. "Estimated arrival in 23 hours. Another officer stepped closer. Marshal, we can recall the active seedfall ships. The rescue corridors can wait. If we bring back the dispersal carriers, we can reinforce the biosphere shield. On the wall, hundreds of green points blinked across Dominion space. Each was an operation in progress. Prison domes opening, labor fleets mutinying, refugees moving through maintenance ducts, alien children being carried out of sterilization schools, human crews patching air systems on worlds whose names most people on Earth had never heard. Annika knew the mathematics. Earth's chance improved if she recalled them. Millions elsewhere died if she did. The room waited for her answer. She looked down at Imani's seeds in her palm. They had not sprouted. They were old, hard, patient. "Keep them moving," she said. "Marshal, keep them moving." The officer swallowed. "If Earth falls?" Annika looked at the map of the galaxy, not the map of home. "Then the last thing Earth does will be rescue work." The glass silence traveled inside a formation of 300 warships, each one stripped of non-essential systems and coated with sterilizing fields. No boarding parties could approach. No biological agent could survive on the hulls. No hidden spore could cling to armor that burned cleaner than surgical flame. Koresh rode aboard the command vessel at its center. Halfway to Sol, a prisoner was brought before him. Her name was Leo Park, captain of the relief courier Minofast. She had been captured near Vonachar after refusing to abandon non-human shipyard workers trapped in a burning dock. She was 31, small, bruised, and missing 2 fingernails. She stood between guards with her chin raised just enough to be irritating. Koresh studied her. "You are not military. No. You carry no rank recognized by war law. I carry people. Your people are facing extinction, and still you waste ships on aliens." Leo smiled through a split lip. "That sentence says more about you than me." A guard hit her. She fell to one knee, coughed, and got back up. Koresh gestured for restraint. "What did Sol hide inside the spores?" Leo blinked once. Koresh leaned closer. "We found her genetic signatures in several outbreaks. We know the old doctor seeded something before her death." "What was it?" Leo's face changed. Not fear. Recognition. Koresh saw it and understood too late that he had confirmed a suspicion she had not known was true. Leo began to laugh. "What was it?" She looked at him with bright, exhausted eyes. "A receipt," she said. Koresh ordered the interrogation cut short, but the word remained inside him like grit. 6 hours later, the truth broke open across the Dominion. It began on Thal, where freed scientists completed formulas written by human yeast. It continued through archive worlds where vines had forced sealed files into public channels. It spread through prison domes, shipyard moss, lichen-blinded cameras, and the green pulse from the Hearthwake's wreckage. Imani Sol had not simply planted rescue systems. She had found the Dominion's hidden engine. Every sterilized planet, every burned forest, every emptied ocean had not been only ideological cruelty. The Velruin harvested the collapse of living biospheres. When billions of organisms died at once, their quantum metabolic noise produced a brief energy bloom. The Dominion's priest engineers had learned to trap that bloom, feed it into the Sunlance network, and extend the lives of their oldest war machines, oldest nobles, and oldest ruling cities. The sterile mandate was not a philosophy. It was a fuel system. Vel-Nira's cleansing had been scheduled not for ore, but to recharge the glass silence. The evidence was alive because Imani knew dead archives could be edited. She encoded the proof into organisms that would assemble the record only when enough seedfall nodes woke together. No single spore contained the truth. No captured sample could betray it. Only a galaxy-wide rescue bloom could complete the pattern. That was why she smiled in court. She had not been hoping humanity would avenge her. She had been betting humanity would keep saving people long enough for the truth to grow. When the evidence reached the galaxy, rebellion stopped being rumor and became math. Species that had doubted human claims saw their own dead worlds listed as fuel events. They saw dates, energy yields, noble beneficiaries, military expenditures. They saw the names of children from planets officially recorded as voluntarily relocated. They saw that their grief had been measured, bottled, and spent. Whole fleets mutinied. Client kings denounced the Synod. Vale Ruin officers shot their priest engineers rather than continue guarding reactors fed by murdered worlds. But the glass silence did not turn back. Koresh accepted the changed battlefield. The Dominion might lose provinces, client species, and history, but if Earth died publicly, the rebellion would lose its center of gravity. Humanity was not the strongest species, not the oldest, not the most numerous, but it had become the proof that fear could be outplanned. The Armada entered the outer Sol perimeter at dusk over the Indian Ocean. That confused Vale Ruin targeting crews more than any illusion could have. Earth shone on every scope, blue and white and painfully alive. Cities glimmered, storms turned, forests darkened entire continents. Radio traffic remained open. Civilian signals did not vanish. Ships did not scatter. Earth's biosphere was talking. Every forest, reef, farm, fungal web, plankton bloom, hospital culture, seed vault, fermentation tank, algae reactor, wheat field, rooftop garden, and human gut biome had been linked into a single defensive chorus through the seedfall mesh. It was not artificial intelligence. It was pattern, redundancy, chemistry, instinct, and human engineering braided together until the planet's living systems could help hold a shield. Fire. The glass silence opened. The captive comet at its core cracked into a halo of white fragments. Sun lances ignited around it, focusing sterilizing light into a sphere wide enough to swallow a continent. The beam did not burn hot. Heat could be shielded. It burned absence, stripping the possibility of life from anything it touched. Earth's first shield layer failed in 11 seconds. The second held for 43. The third began to fracture over the Atlantic. Hospitals sealed premature wards. Farmers stood in underground storage rooms holding jars of soil. Children in Nairobi, Manila, Montreal, Karachi, and Buenos Aires watched teachers press palms against classroom walls covered in emergency moss, telling them to breathe slowly. In Pacific research stations, marine biologists cried as plankton tanks dimmed and then flared brighter, pouring their tiny lives into the shield. Annika Reyes stood in the command nursery while alarms turned the glass tanks red. Shield integrity at 30%, 28. Outer algae webs are burning out. Atlantic microbial layer collapsing. A technician looked up with wet eyes. "Marshal, we need more mass in the beam path." There was only one vessel close enough, large enough, and still equipped with a seedfall core strong enough to matter. The Verdant Saint. It had once been a generation ship, built before faster drives made such vessels obsolete. For a century, it had carried forests, animals, frozen embryos, seed libraries, ocean tanks, and enough soil to begin a continent. Now it served as the largest mobile life ark in human space. It was also full of evacuees from 7 liberated Dominion worlds. Annika opened a channel. The captain appeared before her, an old man named Thomas Edivine, with white hair tied behind his head and a small bird perched on the back of his command chair. His bridge shook around him. Behind him, crew moved with terrible calm. Annika spoke first. "Thomas, your evacuation load." "Already transferred," he said. She stopped. His smile was sad and quick. "We started when the glass silence crossed Neptune. You would have ordered it if you'd had time. How many crew remain?" "Enough." "Tomas." "Annika," he said gently. "Imani gave me my first apple tree after the Europa famine. Don't waste seconds pretending you can talk me out of this." On the screen, the little bird fluttered as the ship turned. The Verdant Saint moved into the path of the glass silence. Vale Ruin crews watched in disbelief. It was not a battleship. Its hull was green gold, scarred by centuries, wrapped in habitat rings and old sunlight mirrors. Through transparent bays, they could see forests, real forests, rivers suspended in gravity, herd animals running in panic, orchards bending under acceleration, a living world inside a ship. The Verdant Saint entered the beam. For one impossible minute, the ship did not explode. Every seed vault opened, every tank ruptured by design, every forest chamber vented into the shield field. Billions of organisms, guided by the ship's seedfall core, burned not as fuel stolen by the Dominion, but as protection freely given. The glass silence faltered, its white beam turned green at the edges. The absence it carried met a storm of life so dense, so varied, so stubborn that its sterilizing pattern began to overload. Thomas Edivane's final transmission reached Earth through static. "Tell the children the apple trees held." Then the Verdant Saint broke apart. Its life wave slammed backward along the beam into the glass silence. The captive comet cracked. Sun lances misaligned. One exploded, then 3, then 17. The sterilization engine convulsed, vomiting white fire into its own escort formation. Koresh's command vessel survived only because its shields were strongest. From behind the Dominion formation came ships that had no right to be there. Mining cruisers from Vanachar, crewed by freed shipbuilders still wearing work harnesses. Prison transports from Oskara, their hulls painted with rain symbols. Vel-Niran bone singers in ice ships repaired by human engineers. Thal scientist barges carrying weapons assembled from formulas written in yeast. Human relief couriers with armor welded over cargo bays, Martian defense cutters, Europa ice tugs, lunar rail barges, civilian freighters, anything that could cross vacuum and aim itself toward tyranny. Annika watched them emerge from seedfall routes across the system. The final battle over Earth lasted 7 hours and 20 minutes. It was not elegant. It was not the clean geometry of Academy simulations. It was smoke, debris, broken signals, improvised repairs, desperate rams, impossible rescues, and ships moving through fire because someone on another channel was still alive. Human crews did not fight like they expected survival. They fought like survival was a task that could be divided into smaller tasks and assigned to whoever still had hands. When the medical ship Saffron Bell found itself beside a crippled Dominion cruiser, its captain ignored 3 orders to retreat and docked anyway, pulling out conscripted alien children the Vile Ruin had used as reactor tenders. Again and again, Vile Ruin commanders assumed disabled vessels were irrelevant. Humans treated them as full of people. Rescue craft crossed firing lanes. Shield drones covered escape pods from both sides. Freed alien crews who saw humans saving enemy conscripts switched allegiance mid-fight. Koresh watched his formation collapse not from one brilliant tactic, but from 1,000 stubborn refusals to behave efficiently. At last, the ruined glass silence drifted between Earth and the Moon, its core exposed. Koresh ordered a manual detonation. His priest engineers stared at him. The blast will consume our fleet. It will consume Earth. And us. Koresh turned slowly. Did you believe order required your survival? They obeyed. The glass silence began its final countdown. Human command detected the power spike instantly. There was no time to evacuate. No shield left strong enough. No ship large enough to repeat the Verdant Saint's sacrifice. The captured courier captain had escaped during the battle, not by overpowering guards, but by convincing a terrified Vale Ruin sanitation worker that he would be blamed for the contamination of Koresh's private deck unless he opened her cell and let her inspect the vents. She had then crawled through 800 meters of sterilized ductwork with a broken wrist. Now she reached the manual detonation chamber. The controls were built for Vale Ruin hands. She had human hands, bleeding and too small, so she used her teeth, her knees, a stolen cutter, and 3 tools she had hidden in her hair because relief couriers never boarded any ship without expecting a hatch to jam somewhere. She could not stop the detonation, but she could redirect the energy path. She opened a channel to Earth. This is Leo Park aboard the command vessel. I can send the blast into their lance grid, but I need the seedfall mesh to accept a foreign pulse. Annika leaned over the console. That will route it through your position. I noticed. Leo, no speeches, Leo said. Her voice shook for the first time. Just tell my sister I kept the slowest third. Annika closed her eyes for half a second. Then she gave the order. Earth's wounded biosphere opened itself. Not as a shield this time, as a throat. The glass silence detonated. Leo's redirected pulse shot through the Vale Ruin lance grid into the overloaded seedfall wave left by the Verdant Saint, and outward through every living node the Covenant had awakened. For 1 second, the whole battlefield flashed green-white. Then the Dominion engines died. Across hundreds of systems, Vale Ruin's sterilization engines shut down as if something living had reached inside them and taught them hunger was not law. Warships lost power, collars opened, prison domes unsealed, archive vaults released, cleansing machines froze mid-stride on worlds they had been about to burn. Koresh Vaughn's command vessel went dark. He was found in his cathedral chamber, alive, surrounded by dead screens and growing grass. The grass had pushed up through polished black flooring that had never touched soil. It spread around his boots, soft and green and obscene to him. A single blue flower bloomed from the cracked remains of his old breathing mask on the floor. When human Marines entered, Koresh expected execution. He welcomed it. Death could be made into purity. Defeat could be carved into martyrdom. The Dominion understood endings that looked like clean cuts. Marshal Annika Reyes arrived 3 hours later. Her uniform was burned. Her synthetic arm moved stiffly. A strip of bandage covered one side of her neck. She carried no weapon visible except a gardener's knife at her belt. Koresh stood in restraints between two Marines. "You will kill me," he said. Annika looked at the grass before she looked at him. "No." His mandibles flexed. "You cannot allow me to live. That is not the same as needing you dead. I ordered your world sterilized. Yes. I killed your teacher. Yes. I would do both again." Annika's face did not change. "I know." For the first time, uncertainty moved through him. "Then what punishment satisfies human disorder?" Annika stepped closer. She removed the envelope from her pocket, now empty except for dust from Imani's seeds. She placed it on the dead command console between them. "You built an empire on the belief that life is only useful when it can be consumed," she said. "You are going to spend the rest of your life watching everything you consumed grow back without asking your permission." It took place in the largest surviving greenhouse aboard the damaged Verdant Saint fragment recovered from orbit. Half the roof was temporary glass, rainwater collected in emergency channels, rows of rescued plants leaned under artificial lamps. The air smelled of smoke, wet leaves, and machine oil. Koresh was not displayed in chains before a cheering crowd. Humanity had learned enough from its own history to fear the theater of revenge. Imani's living archive unfolded piece by piece: energy ledgers, sterilization schedules, noble rejuvenation records, orders signed by wardens who claimed extinction was hygiene while billing the dead as fuel, testimony from freed scientists, memory songs from Vel Nira, soil samples from glassed worlds, names recovered from prison domes, the last transmissions of planets the Dominion had polished into monuments. The Purity Synod collapsed in stages. Some Valrun worlds surrendered. Some fought until their own citizens opened the sealed gardens humans had hidden decades earlier. Some tried to burn evidence and discovered that vines had grown through the archive walls, carrying copies in every leaf. Client rulers fled. Forced labor fleets changed course. Sterilization temples were turned into seed banks under guard by species once marked for cleansing. Many feared it would. Some humans wanted it to. Grief makes simple answers tempting, and power offers clean language for dirty desires. There were councils where admirals argued for occupation, governors demanded permanent control of Vial-Rune shipyards, and angry crowds asked why mercy should be extended to anyone who had worn black glass armor. Annika answered the same way each time. If we turn survival into ownership, we have planted the same poison in different soil. The Seedfall Covenant was rewritten in public, not by Earth alone, but by every liberated species willing to sign. Its new law was carved into metal, coded into roots, sung into Vel Niran ice, stored in Thal equations, painted on Oscaran rain towers, and taught to human children before they learned fleet histories. Life cannot be owned as a weapon. Rescue cannot be rationed by obedience. Memory must remain distributed, and when the worst happens, those who can still move must help those who cannot. Dead worlds did not bloom overnight. Prisoners did not stop flinching because collars had opened. Vial-Rune citizens raised under the sterile mandate did not learn in a week that soil was not filth, that forests were not riots, that children from conquered species were not contamination with names. Human engineers rebuilt filtration towers. Vel Niran singers mapped graves beneath ice. Oscaran miners turned punishment domes into rain farms. On Earth, the oceans recovered slowly. Some reefs never returned. Some forests grew back strange. The Verdant Saint's loss left gaps no vault could replace. Families of its crew planted apple trees in soil mixed with dust recovered from the ship's habitat rings. Most of the trees failed in the first winter. The survivors planted again, plant again, teach again, repair again, carry water farther than seems reasonable, return to places others call finished, leave something alive. Years later, the memorial for Dr. Imani Sol was built neither in Earth's capital nor above the Vulrune court where she died. It was built on Velnira, beneath the ice she had tried to save. The cavern roof glittered with frozen oceans. Moss cities grew again along crystal walls. Warm streams ran through channels cut by human drills and Velniran bone song. 3 apple trees, grown from old seeds found in Imani's field kit, stood beside silver-barked Oscaron rain trees, Thal medicinal vines, Martian redgrass, Europa algae pools, and a single blue flower from a species no one could classify. Around them were carved the names of those lost on the Hearthwake, the Verdant Saint, the Minnowfast, and every rescue operation that had answered Seedfall's first call. Marshal Anika Reyes attended the opening in a plain gray jacket. She did not give the kind of speech governments expected. She stood under the crystal roof, with rain falling where rain had once been impossible, and read Imani's sentence aloud. "Leave something alive." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Velniran children began to sing through their bones, a low sound like mountains remembering the sea. Oscaran survivors opened their palms and let rain collect there. Human veterans who had fought over Earth lowered their heads. Vilrune defectors stood at the edge of the garden, trembling before plants they had once been taught to hate. Across the cavern, thousands of seeds released from hidden pods and drifted down through the warm air. And far beyond Velnira, in the dark lanes where frightened rulers still dreamed of clean obedience and dead worlds, tiny seedfall nodes slept inside pipes, gardens, ships, roofs, wells, kitchens, libraries, and refugee blankets. Quiet, patient, ordinary, human. Because the galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest weapon was not the fire it could unleash. It was the life it refused to abandon, a cup of soil carried through vacuum, a doctor smiling with blood on her mouth, a courier keeping tools in her hair, a generation ship becoming a shield, a wounded planet opening its breath to save strangers, and a species stubborn enough to believe that even after the engines of extinction begin to turn, even after the sky goes white, even after the garden burns, the answer is still the same. Plant again, protect the root, share the water, and leave something alive.